This is John King. I'm speaking with Jonathan Motl. He's the Political Practices Commissioner for the state of Montana. And my understanding is that there is an ethics disagreement between a legislator over here in the Missoula area, Brad Tschida, and apparently the governor. And there was an ethics complaint filed with your office. And that along the line, as that was in process, Brad sent some information or a letter of some sort to some other legislators in the state of Montana, and that there is apparently from your office a complaint or a problem with what Brad did. I was hoping you could kind of explain the Office of Political Practices position.
Well, I'm very pleased to be on your show, Mr. King. And just so the listeners can hear this, ethics complaints are an entirely, if somebody wants to talk about campaign practices in the state of Montana, they file a campaign practice complaint. They're immediately posted to the website. They're decided very swiftly. And the laws on campaign practices favor discussion. The opposite is true for ethics complaints. These are complaints about individual behavior. And because of that, those complaints have a complete confidentiality, statutorily imposed status. And that confidentiality is imposed on the person filing the complaint, the person who is the subject of the complaint, and the commissioner. Mr. Tschida, by releasing a ethics complaint, violated a specific section of state law to which there is no exception.
Now, he's saying that he has some extra coverage as a legislator, too.
Well,
is that untrue, or what's that?
It is bogus. Let me read you the exact section of law. The complainant, that's the person who files the ethics complaint, and the person who is the subject of the complaint shall maintain the confidentiality of the complaint and any related documents released to the parties by the commissioner until the commissioner issues a decision. It is just so exquisitely black and white. And that is a statute. That's 221364. Mr. Tschida, as a sitting legislator, chose to violate a specific section of state statute, and he did it in the last days of a campaign, which I think magnifies the seriousness of what he did.
Now, that all being said, what does that mean as far as the original complaint? Is it going to be set aside, or is anything going to change to its process through your office, or the legal system it would go through, the path it would go through?
Well, ethics complaints filed by my office are generally rejected. The jurisdiction that our office has is narrow, and the laws that are covered by the ethics complaint are equally narrow. So if you go onto our website, where they're all listed, you will see that we have 1 that we accepted, 17 that we rejected, and 2 that are currently in process. And so the time that it takes to resolve an ethics complaint, because it's an entirely different procedure, the commissioner does not investigate as they do in campaign practices. It's an adversarial proceeding. The complainant files. It comes before the commissioner, who then determines whether or not it falls under the laws and under the jurisdiction. If the commissioner accepts a complaint, still the entire process is still confidential then, but the commissioner's office then reverts to a hearing officer status, conducts an informal hearing procedure. The person filing the complaint becomes the prosecutor. The person who's the subject of the complaint becomes essentially the defendant. And that is the process that was beginning here. And Mr. Tschida, in complete violation of specific directions in state law, to which I just read it to your listeners, I don't think there can be any doubt about what that law says, released a complaint, I would presume for political purposes, in the last days of a political campaign. And he doesn't have any authority to do that. His legislative status, he's not in the session, he's not speaking on the floor, there's no bill that's pending, and he has no special status as a citizen that gives him a right to decide which laws he's going to follow and which laws he doesn't. And so I think it's that's our stance. That it's just outrageous that he did what he did at the time that he did it.
Got you. I still wasn't clear though on the what happens to the complaint now. I mean, does that mean that this complaint will be?
I'm still under confidentiality on any complaint that's filed before this office.
Oh, I realize that. No, I'm asking whether or not, because he is the individual behind the complaint, at least whatever I was able to read, if the fact that he broke this law, if he did as you say he did, does that affect his original complaint at all as far as its process?
It doesn't affect the complaint that is filed. He has personal responsibility for his actions, and so he'll need to deal with the consequences of breaking state law.
And what are those consequences?
Well, there's the main consequence that befalls an official who violates a mandatory duty is official misconduct.
And that would be a charge in civil court?
No, it's criminal court.
It's a criminal court charge.
Yes.
And so will your office be bringing charges like that?
It is inappropriate for me to say what anything, particularly in the timing that we've got left here, and I simply won't do it. And I wouldn't expect anybody would consider bringing something for or against Mr. Tschida
until after the 8th.
Yes.
Gotcha.
But I just want so. We all live under laws here. A legislator doesn't get to shoot 2 deer because they're a legislator. And a legislator doesn't get to drive 105 on the freeway because they're a legislator. And a legislator can't decide unilaterally that he's going to break a specific statute that places the duty of confidentiality on him. I just find it almost incomprehensible that he would do this.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Mr. Motl. I'm going to stop my recorder.